they could come, right? Because this would be fun. We're doing this thing. And so I went, well, we should get some, some certain type, with our name, Desert Outpouring, and then an arrow, and people could know that they could come to see us, right? This would be good. And so most people call that a logo, right? So I called a really good friend who's a fantastic designer, and I'm going to have you go do this, Dan, if you don't mind. And I said, hey, we need a logo. And she's like, you live in the Sonoran Desert. And she's like, do you like cactus? And I'm like, well, I love cactus, but I don't know that I want a cactus, in our logo, because cactuses are prickly, they're not really warm and fuzzy. And so I don't know that I want that as the symbol. She's like, well, do you want a cross? And I'm like, I definitely don't want a cross, because crosses are so religiously laden for so many people, and they mean so many different things. So I said, if we can steer away from that imagery and be more neutral in inviting to, because I just want people to have a chance to move past what they already know about faith and step into something new. That's what we're trying to do, is step into something new. So definitely don't want to cross. And do you remember anything else we said? Okay, so here was one of the, and we said we want it to look like a camping company, like maybe a mountain, vague mountain reference. I know, super fun video about worship music. Anyway, we'll have to show you that another time. Super, So this was one of the images we got back. I don't know.
Seriously?
It's a cactus cross. Yes, thank you, right? And I don't know if you can tell, I don't know if you can enlarge in that, Dan, but there are really huge pokies on this cross. Really, really big pokies. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Like, and by the way, this person, I had 2 different people work on this over the course of 2 years. Like, we didn't work on it for 2 years. It just, we worked on it, realized it wasn't working, then worked on it again, realized it wasn't working, and stopped. And so I had to pray about, like, what? Like, pokey, scary cactus cross that doesn't feel warm and inviting. That doesn't feel like a camping company. I was like, think granola bar and then put our name on it. Like, that would be good. That's what we want. And so this is, okay, you can do the next one, Dan. And so now they have 3 crosses that are cactus. But the outpouring's like super fun and kind of baseball-y like, so that could be fun, But also, again, still like, what? And so I was asking the Lord, like, these are good designers. What they designed on their website doesn't look anything like this. So I had to go to the Lord, why? Why do we have this? Because I don't even know what to tell them. Because their first question when they did design work for you is what is the first question?
You like it?
What did you like? Nothing. Like, they want to know, what did you like, so they can take that as a jumping off point. And I was like, okay, so you can show them the next one, Dan, thanks. So, I think somebody's giving the finger on one of these, but I'm just, like, I don't know. Okay, next. It's throwing me. It's so like, what? And all of them had crosses, and all of them had cactus. It was okay. So when I went to the Lord and I went, what is going on? Because then what you want to do is you want to go, well, this person isn't a good designer, right? This is what we do to justify pain. Like, I'm disappointed and frustrated with the designs that have come in, so now I'm either going to blame me or blame you. What does that do in the triangle, right? I'm either a victim, a victimizer, or a rescuer. So now I'm putting them in that box. Except for I went, no, that's not the answer. That's not how God talks. God's not going to blame the designer. So I said, what are our big questions that we ask God? What does this mean? What shall I do? And I'm going to wrap this up because I probably have totally gone over time. And that's so nice, you didn't even tell me. So, oh, wow, shockingly not so bad. What does this mean? What shall I do? Those are the big questions we always ask. What does this mean? What shall I do? So I asked the Lord, what the heck does this mean? Is there any more of them there that are like not so great? Oh, okay, this is what I sent them as an example. Like, those like retro badges. Like something like that. Can we do something like that? And so you can see the designs that I got. Not so much like that. And this was another one. I'm not so sure if that's a sand pile or a mountain. And I just, yeah. And is there one? No, that's all of them. Okay. So I'm going to have you text Dan one that I have.
This isn't already ready?
Yeah, well, I hadn't sent it to him. Sorry. I forgot to send this one to him. You sent it to me, right?
I don't know.
You texted it to me? Didn't you? The
Yeah.
image? This is me. Oh, from you.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Can you text that to Dan?
I can try.
Thanks. So, we're super informal. Okay, so I asked the Lord, what does this mean? And he reminded me of all the different companies that we've worked with in the past to help them create their logos and their brand imaging, and how often the designers will create images and logos that go counter to their mission. And sometimes the people themselves who have the company will create images that go counter to who they actually are and what they're trying to sell people. And the reason that happens is because their very identity is getting pressed against. And the Lord just reminded me of that. He goes, this is a matter of identity. This is not a matter of design. Your group needs to come into their identity because their identity is being pressed on to feel religious, confusing, outdated, and super kind of scary and maybe possibly offensive in one of them. That's what's being pressed on. Not because these aren't good designers. It's because your identity is coming forth. So I kept kind of going, okay, Lord, let's get into our identity. And our group started to grow in our individual identities, which develops our corporate identity. So Greg asked me, I told you at the very beginning I was going to tell you, Greg asked me, what do you want for Christmas? And I said, I want a logo. Like, I don't care so much about a logo, but I would like something that exists in the world that says, like, there's a little image that this is who we are. And by the way, this is a totally me thing. Like, some of you don't even care, but I'm all about, like, I love printed brochures. I love a good label on a bottle. I might keep a bottle just because the label's like really well designed. So this is like a super personal thing that may not matter to half of you. But if I said, like, I just want a super great sports car that goes really, really fast, okay, this is what this means to me. I just want it. So I said, Lord, I want a really great logo, and I want us to be in the place where our identity is ready to come forward. Instead of hiring really good designers and ending up with designs that really don't feel right for us, and then not even hardly knowing where, and there's like 20 more that I didn't even show you, where we tried to make corrections and it just didn't work. Right, Nikki? She knows. It just didn't work. It didn't matter what we said, it didn't work. So I said, this is what I want, Lord. And he goes, well, what if I gave that to you for Christmas? And I was like, that would be awesome. So here's what happened. I ran into a gal 3 weeks ago. She says she's a graphic designer. I call her up. I said, we're in spiritual warfare for our logo image. So don't know what that means, but if you're ready to take that, and she goes, oh, my dad always taught me, who's a pastor. She goes, my dad always taught me graphic design is a contact sport. I know what spiritual opposition is. I totally would love to do this project with you. Who says that? You have had a hard time? I'd love to work with you. In real estate, does anyone want to hear? I've looked at 500, right? Tell me this. I've looked at 500 houses. Would you be my new realtor? Because my past 3 realtors fired me. Like, right? You're going, no, right? Greg's going, past behavior is best predictor of future behavior, right? So she takes this project on. We start to get a design going. And then here's what happens. It starts going south. Like, right, Nikki was in the meeting with me when it happened. Kristen was in the meeting when it happened. We were like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? She does a couple of things. She sends it over to us, and we're like, that's worse than before. And I was like, no, like, not again, right? And so I leave the lunch. I'm in tears. They saw me in tears. This was this week. And I'm going, it is time. It's time for our identity to be manifest in this earth and not be pushed back. It's time for every single one of us to stand up in the magnificence of who God made us to be, and for us to not be pushed out of it by a little bit of opposition. This is what Jesus did in the wilderness. This is what John was talking about in John 1:1, where he says, in the beginning, everybody else did his genealogy, but John did something amazing with Jesus. He goes, in the beginning was the word, logos. And you know what that word means? I want you to put this up there if you don't mind. Logos. It means the entire thought process, the entire creation, the thought process, the thinking it back and forth, the very logic and the reasoning and the speaking and the manifesting of communication. It's everything from the inception of an idea to the full completion of the idea. That's what logos means. So John was going, in the beginning was the very mind of God towards humanity. In the beginning was the Word, the Logos, the intention, the thought of God. And that thought was with God, and that thought was God, and that thought became flesh and dwelt among us. He was going, the very intention and mind of God is Christ. He was going, I don't need to give the genealogy of Jesus going back to David. I need to give the genealogy of Jesus going back to the mind of God. And he is our bridge that awakens us to the very mind and logic of God for us. That's what he came to do, to awaken us to the logic and the mind of God for us and with us. God with us, Emmanuel. Right? So good. Yay! So, wrapping it up, I'm in my car. I'm totally crying because once again I have a can I say crappy? No. Super bad design. And I'm like, Lord, I thought you wanted to give this to me. And you know what he said? I love when he does this. He goes, why don't you just take it? And I was like, oh. He goes, you've been waiting for me to give to you something that's already yours. Take it. And I went, oh, this is the part where I get to be human. This is the part where I get to partner with God as a co-creator with God and call it forth. The reason why Adam get to name the animals is because we are co-creators with God, and our agreement with God makes things happen. One person's agreement with God is better than an entire city's agreement with Satan. So all I needed was to agree with God. I needed to stop waiting for him to save me like I was a victim, and I needed to stand up and call forth my birthright. So I was like, okay, I'm calling it forth with tears in my eyes, streaming down, getting ready to pick up Abraham from school. I'm like, I'm calling it forth. And I had no idea what she was going to do. And later that night she goes, I have a half hour to work on it. Why don't I just work on some things and you send me a picture of something you like? And I'm like, oh, we're starting all over again. This is not going to go anywhere. Sent her 2 pictures of something I like, but I called it forth and I'm like, okay, Lord, I've called it forth. Now what happens? And right away she sent me back. Now I'm not saying this is the end all be all of logos. Again, it's not about the little things in our life. It's about what the little things mean. So this is what she came back with. Right? Yay! It says, love the adventure, desert outpouring, Cave Creek, Arizona. So I immediately ran out and had it engraved on a water bottle. Because that's the way I roll. I absolutely. Because I've been waiting to have something physical that says this is who we are. Now again, like we don't need to, I liked it. Our whole team might decide they don't like it, and that's fine. And it doesn't have to last forever, and logos come and go. But at least it's something that doesn't have a really scary cactus cross, right? I mean, I think I would be okay with being with people who are hanging out in that kind of space. So you may have people who have been looking at old logos on your life. You may have people in your life who don't know who you are, and they see something else when they look at you. But the super cool thing is that we have the Holy Spirit, and we have the Lord who gets to narrate our story. Hi guys, come on in. And we get to stop listening to negative voices who tell us who we are, because that's why Jesus came. To introduce us to our true selves so that nobody is confused, least of all us. Right? Yay! All right, do you have a comment on that, babe?
No. I'm making.
In lieu of time, you are not going to make a comment. Okay, so we're going to bring up Jared. Lindsay is home with a sick kiddo, and Jared hosts our time. We believe it's so important that you hear God all the time and who's narrating your story, that we practice every week. We just take practice, and it's like soccer practice. You're not going to hit every goal in. You just take time to see if you can hear what you think God's saying. Write it down on a card. So I'm going to ask you to get card out of your bucket. We're going to listen for somebody. Jared probably has a plan with the Lord as to what that's going to look like. And we just practice with each other. And you're not supposed to be an all-star soccer player the first time you get on the field. And many of us have been taught that you really aren't allowed to hear God like this. So for many of us, it was the first time. I remember many of our core people, like this was their first time going, okay, can I really trust what I'm hearing from the Lord? You don't know till you get the feedback. I think I hear something, but I think that's just me and that's just crazy. And then I share it with the person. The person goes, oh my goodness, that's like my favorite song. It's tattooed on my back. And I'm like, okay, I think that might have been from the Lord. So we just practice hearing the Lord. Write down what you think you hear. You do not have to share it. Nobody is going to take it from you. But if you want to share it with the person afterwards, you can. So Jared's going to come up and host us.